The Badlands, running the Badlands. Explain those Badlands. That's a hell of a name.
All right, good morning, Badlandia. Welcome to Badlands Daily.
It really feels like the cat with the laser pointer. It's like you've led the cat up to the top of the building, and now you're leading it over the edge.
President Trump is rebalancing trade around the world and making things more fair for the American people.
I think that anytime the deep state can like over-capitalize on whatever situation they have, they're going to.
But the rest of it is a very well-organized and well-funded color revolution operation of the type they run all over the world again and again and again to destabilize entire society.
All right, good morning, Badlandia. Welcome to Badlands Daily. Joined on this Tuesday by Gordon, the ghost of base Patrick Henry. And looks like ghost of base Patrick Henry was getting into some quarrels last night. How you doing, brother? You forget to get snoring issues?
You should see the other guy.
That's the right answer every time.
Yeah, he's 2 years, 9 months old, but yeah.
Oh man, Gordon comes on. I'm like, did you forget to take your breathe right off? And he's like, no, man, my son nailed me in the face with a toy.
Yeah, dude. I mean, like 2-year-olds are much stronger than they realize, and they'll just swing their arms around when they're having fun, and when they're holding a toy with an edge on it, that can be very dangerous. So he got me like right before Book of Trump last night, and I was telling Brian I had to like run out to Walgreens to get the butterfly strips because it was split open like a normal Band-Aid. It was like gushing, and so
yeah, your face, the face bleeds a lot. So you look at it and you're like, oh my goodness, this is gonna be so bad, and then you're like, wait, a butterfly just. Done.
Yeah. Well, and there's no skin right there, so it's not like you can't like stitch it, right? There's nothing to stitch. So it's
So what's worse, getting smashed in the face by a toy or stepping on Legos?
Oh, stepping on Legos, 100%. This didn't even really hurt. It just it was disorienting for a second, and then I looked, and then I could just tell, like I could see out of the corner of my eyes that there was something going on. I looked in the mirror, and it was just like my whole nose was covered in blood. So it's just one of those things. He just got me in the right spot, and it's all like bruised around it, so you know it was like in the perfect spot.
Oh yeah, you're gonna have black eyes in a couple days.
That's what I was worried about too. I was like, man, I'm gonna have a black eye too because of this.
You have to have Mrs. Ghost do some makeup on you before your shows.
Yeah, I'm just gonna have to roll with it. I'm just gonna have to own it and just roll with it. Yeah,
I just go with you should see the other guy.
Yeah, at least the people at preschool, the other dads at preschool will know, like, not to mess with me. So
yeah, don't mess around with Gordon. Don't mess around with that luscious hair. All right, here we go, folks. Let's jump into the show. Before we get going, let's talk about our sponsors. You know those nights where you just don't sleep because your breathe right is on wrong? No, I'm just kidding. And the next day you're dragging, exhausted, and everything just feels harder. That's where CBD from CB Distillery can make a real difference. It's not just sleep, though. CB Distillery has solutions that work with your body to help with stress, pain after exercise, even mood and focus. And it's all made with the highest quality, clean ingredients, no fillers, just premium CBD. Imagine waking up rested and enjoying your day without those nagging aches and pains. That's the real win with CB Distillery solutions. And that's why over 2 million people trust CB Distillery, including yours truly, the cannabis conservative, massive fan of CBD and CB Distillery. Take the tinctures, the gummies. My pets take the tinctures. Can't get enough. So if you're ready for better sleep, less stress, and feeling good in your own skin again, try CBD from CB Distillery. And right now you can save 25% off your entire purchase. Visit cbdistillery.com and use promo code Badlands. Again, that's cbdistillery.com, promo code Badlands, cbdistillery.com. Specific product availability depends on individual state regulations. All right. And then let's also talk about another natural solution, and that is Field of Greens. You know, we all have two ages, our actual age and our body's internal biological age. But what most people don't know is that you can likely lower that age without even knowing it. Here's the thing. Americans eat so many processed foods and not enough fruits and veggies. And many, perhaps most, are 10 plus years older on the inside than their actual age. They're called ticking time bombs. A major university study suggests how to slow aging and diffuse that biological time bomb. Participants slowed their aging down by drinking Field of Greens, and that's it. They didn't change their eating, drinking, or exercise, just Field of Greens. My wife and I drink it every single morning. Each fruit and vegetable in Field of Greens was doctor selected for specific health benefits: cell health, heart health, lungs, kidneys, metabolism, even healthy weight. I feel great knowing Field of Greens can slow how quickly I'm aging, and I encourage you to join me. Swap your untested fruit, vegetable, or green drink for Field of Greens while there's still time. Check out the university study and get 20% off when you purchase, when you use promo code Badlands at fieldofgreens.com. Again, that's fieldofgreens.com, promo code Badlands. All right, let's get into the show. Before we do that, if you guys don't mind, please smash that thumbs up down there. Boom, right around there, a little 1,500 as we get ready to go here. Oh, and right off the rip, Tom Homan 44, the show from yesterday, or the movie from yesterday's show, was called Old Dads. And it has Bill Burr in it from Netflix. And while Bill Burr is not a conservative, despite the Jimmy Kimmel reporting, that movie is actually pretty hilarious and absolutely smashes cancel culture. So I would jump into that. All right, so let's start out today's show and see if we can test the limits of YouTube. We are on YouTube right now, and talk about an official action taken by President Trump yesterday. And that is exposing Tylenol as dangerous for pregnant women.
Effective immediately, the FDA will be notifying physicians that the use of well, let's see how we say that. Acetaminophen. Is that okay?
We don't deserve this man.
God, he's so good.
I said, as soon as I saw this yesterday, I said the only thing the Mockingbird media is going to talk about is that President Trump doesn't know how to say acetaminophen.
Yeah. And like, whether he actually like didn't practice that and just kind of went out there and winged it, or he intentionally screwed that up for the purpose of like 5GW, like getting them to run the soundbite making fun of him. It's the net effect is still the same, and it's hilarious. Like I love the fact that he mispronounced that, because I mispronounce words all the time and just power through. But yeah, the intent there is to get them to run the soundbite. He did this all the time in 2016 during the campaign, where he would like bigly. Bigly was one of those words that he would say where people would make fun of him for saying bigly, but he would always use it in the context of like a campaign slogan, right? So,
yep. All right, let's keep going.
Which is basically commonly known as Tylenol, during pregnancy, can be associated with a very increased risk of autism. So taking Tylenol is not good. All right, I'll say it. It's not good. For this reason, they are strongly recommending that women limit Tylenol use during pregnancy unless medically necessary. That's, for instance, in cases of extremely high fever, that you feel you can't tough it out, you can't do it. I guess there's that. It's a small number of cases, I think. But if you can't tough it out, if you can't do it, that's what you're going to have to do. You'll take a Tylenol, but it'll be very sparingly.
So a lot of people it sounds like some people are upset because they were expecting, something much more promised. But I think this is actually potentially a big deal here. As far as I know, and I don't have any experience with pregnancy, but as far as I know, like Tylenol is the one pain reliever that they've always said you can take this safely. And now it turns out, you know, and there's a lot of studies, because a lot of people have been up in arms about this, saying it's fake news. It's fake news. Well, the White House published, let me see if I can find it real quick. It was one of my other tabs here. Yeah. The White House published, you know, some headlines from stories here that, you know, esteemed, you know, medical journals have talked about this already. And now they're just kind of bringing it out there, making recommendations to the FDA, et cetera. And Mockingbird Media is melting down over that, not realizing that they're ultimately going to have egg on their face, because this has been, you know, established science for, you know, at least going back, it looks like 2020, maybe, I think that's the earliest one that they listed up here. But anyways, there is more to this story, but I'll let you jump in if you want first on the acetaminophen.
Yeah, so a few things. You're absolutely right. That's the one thing they say don't take. You know, the competitor is Advil, which is a different medicine, and they say don't take that. And I think it has to do with like the blood thinner aspect of it. I might be wrong about that, but I, you know, lived through my wife being pregnant 3 times, and I talked to my mom about this yesterday, who was pregnant 4 times. And yeah, like that, the conventional wisdom has always been you don't take anything except for Tylenol. So the fact that they're saying acetaminophen is the only thing you're supposed to take, and now the Trump administration is saying, well, this is actually the thing that causes autism. If you want to share my screen real quick, let me pull this up. Jordan Sather put this out. He's done some good. Obviously, this is his line of country, so to speak. But there's a 38-second clip from Fox News or Fox Business that he posted. And he says, right before RFK Jr. and Trump's press conference on autism today, Tylenol parent company Kinvu breaks its silence and vehemently denies any role of Tylenol in causing autism. Reports are surfacing that Kinvu is planning on suing the Trump administration if they announce any link between Tylenol and autism. So that's interesting. Like that'll be an interesting court case. Like the defense, like what's Tylenol going to say, or Kinvu? Like they're going to come out and say it's actually not us causing autism. Here's the thing that's actually causing autism. Like they're going to have to create reasonable doubt in the mind of the judge or the jury, whatever kind of trial it is. Yeah, like so that'll be interesting. And then the other thing, because you alluded to. You know, people thinking it was going to be something else. Trump actually made a lot of statements yesterday about vaccines. He said initially he told that story during the press conference of the woman who used to work for him, whose son, whose baby died from vaccines, had like 108 fever is what he said. And then he made this statement. If we want to play this real quick, 1-minute clip. I think this is on Air Force One after the press conference.
Planning to announce any link between vaccines and autism?
Vaccines are very interesting. They can be great, but when you put the wrong stuff in them, and you know, children get these massive vaccines like you'd give to a horse. And I've said for a long time, I mean, this is no secret, spread them out over 5 years. Get 5 shots, small ones. Did you ever see what they give? They give, I mean, for a little baby to be injected with that much fluid, even beyond the actual ingredients, they have sometimes 80 different vaccines in them. It's crazy. It's you know, that's a common sense thing too. It's like you're shooting up a horse. You have a little body, a little baby, and you're pumping this big thing. It's a horrible thing. So I've always felt that. But we'll be having a big discussion tomorrow about autism.
Getting to announce any
So I guess that was before the press conference, but yeah, so I mean, he's seeding that narrative, like he's sowing the doubt, and now it's going to be on Big Pharma to come out swinging against him, which I'm sure they will. But you know, like this is a fight that absolutely needs to happen. Like this is a fight that deserves the light of day, and let's see all these executives come out and defend what he just said, because what he just said is 100% accurate. Like it defies common sense to inject that much fluid into a tiny little body at one time. Like regardless of what the actual medicine is in each of these doses, you know, if you want to argue that these things are healthy and safe and all that, why are you putting that much fluid in a little baby at one moment, you know, like you would to a horse? So, yeah, let's see Big Pharma come out and defend that.
20 to 25 injections by the age of 5. That is insane, man.
Yeah, it is.
For
It is
things that,
insane.
like, for things that you don't even hear about, hepatitis B, I mean, that one's, I guess, legitimate. I'm sure there's a lot of controversy around Hep B, I think back around 2012. Rotavirus, DTaP, HIV, pneumococcal conjugate. That's just insane. Varicella, chickenpox. Like chickenpox, you have a vaccine for chickenpox. We used to have parties when people got chickenpox when we were kids.
Get everyone chickenpox, so everyone would get
chickenpox.
Because chickenpox is 100 times worse if you get it as an adult than if you like
shingles.
It can call shingles. Yeah, it's shingles. Yeah, so it's like, dude, this is insane. Like human beings lived for thousands of years without any of this stuff, and everyone, you know, you can argue that life expectancy wasn't as long, but it's like, dude, this is not like they're saying they need to inject the babies this early because it's childhood dangers. Like people are in danger of getting this stuff as a young child and it like impacting their life. And it's like, well, wait a minute. Like, let's have a conversation about this. And, you know, like, I don't even know if we're still active on YouTube at this point. Like, YouTube will just shut you down for talking about this.
That's what I
like,
was just laughing about.
They're just going to shut you down for it. And it's like, okay, so you don't want to have the conversation. You don't want to have the conversation at all.
Maybe I should.
And that tells you everything you need to know.
Maybe I should preemptively shut YouTube down right now.
Well, it's probably too late at this point, but you know what? Fuck them. I mean, seriously, it's like, it's despicable that the conversation is being shut down, because if the truth was on their side, they would not be afraid of scrutiny. They would not be afraid of questions. They would not be afraid of any of it. They would be proudly parading the studies, the medicine, like the medical studies, all of it. They, like the clinical trials, they'd be proudly parading it out and saying, look how good this is. This is a modern medical science miracle, right? But they don't do that.
Yep.
So,
well, not only that, I mean, we're literally playing the words of the President of the United States and the Secretary of Health and Human Services.
Yeah.
I mean, if we can't do that, then I don't know what you can do in their censorship, communist, freaking draconian bullshit. All right, let's play this clip here of RFK Jr.
We are continuing to investigate a multiplicity of potential causes with no areas of taboo. One area that we are closely examining, as the president mentioned, is vaccines. Some 40 to 70% of mothers who have children with autism believe that their child was injured by a vaccine. President Trump believes that we should be listening to these mothers instead of gaslighting and marginalizing them like prior administrations. Some of our friends like to say that we should believe all women. But some of these same people have been silencing and demonizing these mothers for 3 decades, because research on the potential link between autism and vaccines has been actively suppressed in the past. It will take time for an honest look at this topic by scientists. We are.
All right, so RFK, promising to continue the investigation into, vaccines and their relationship or correlation with autism, with the surge in autism. The Tylenol thing is definitely something that's interesting to me, because it's while the baby's pregnant or while the mother's pregnant with the baby and dependent on, nourishment from the mother, that, taking these chemical concoctions like that, especially if it's been recommended. Like, I would love to see, some sort of like or not an explanation, but like maybe if we could see the data from when they officially, started the campaign to promote Tylenol for pregnant mothers, and see the correlation there with a rise in autism rates and what that represents. But there has to be some relation there. President Trump did say, what was it, mercury, and what was the other element that he said needs to be out of it? Aluminum.
It might have been aluminum. I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah, I can't remember, but he said these two ingredients need to be taken out completely. And there was an announcement he made maybe a month ago, that mercury was being removed from one of the vaccines. But that was kind of like something that had already taken place, as far as I know. Like the flu vaccine that he was referring to was not a widely distributed vaccine. It wasn't like the primary vaccine. I don't know. I just, this is a lot of stuff coming at us at once. And I'm just glad to see this kind of getting the attention that it needs to get.
Yeah, and I mean, it'll be interesting to see this court case, these court cases play out, because you got to think that the Trump administration had prepared themselves for that. Like they knew that there was gonna like maybe this was bait. Like maybe they wanted to be sued. Like maybe they're okay with losing a lawsuit if the truth comes out through the lawsuit. And and again, like I'm just speculating here. I don't know. Like I'm not a medical researcher. Like I don't have expertise in that. But it could be that Kinvu comes out and argues that acetaminophen is actually perfectly fine and safe by itself. It's once you start mixing it with the vaccines that it becomes like troublesome, right? So, like these are just things that potential possible like outcomes that could happen. And then of course, once Kinvu makes those statements, they're going to be in the crosshairs of Pfizer and these other companies. So this could just become like a circular firing squad. But ultimately, we have to remind ourselves, why did the guys at Nuremberg get hanged? Like what were the things that they were charged with that got them hanged? A lot of it was medical experimentation, right? Like experimenting on populations, like administering serums, basically. Like you can't call them anything but that, to see what would happen. Just testing medicines on populations, like in these concentration camps. And that's what a lot of the guys at Nuremberg were hanged for. War crimes against humanity. So you can't have it both ways. It's like if you're gonna do it, then we got to revisit that and say, well, is that what happened here? Like, did we do that? And I went on my show, 2 weeks ago, I think it was. We looked at when Trump first announced the whole operation against the cartels in Venezuela, and I went back and I looked at back on January 20th when he classified them as a terrorist organization. And in the executive order, it cited another executive order from George Bush's administration from 2005, 2004, 2005. I went back and I read through on screen that entire executive order from George Bush. And it basically outlined, here are the stipulations that that define a terrorist organization. And it's not what you think it would be. Like, it's not, guys strapping bombs to their chest or engaging in kinetic warfare. It's all about terrorizing a population for political, for political gain. And as I'm reading through it, I literally said, I was like, man, this sounds a lot like what Big Pharma was doing to us in 2020, like through the media. And that was an executive order from George Bush from 20 years ago.
So we're definitely getting bombed on YouTube.
I mean, but I'm just saying, if that's the standard, these are standards that were put in place, not by the Trump administration. They were standards put in place 20 years ago for the war on terror. And when you read through it, it's hard not to think about what happened in 2020 and 2021 and the campaign that was the psychological warfare operation that was conducted through corporate America and corporate media against the American people.
All right, let's we're going to stay on the pharmaceutical issue here, but kind of shift gears to an announcement that Caroline Leavitt put out, and I am beyond concerned about this announcement and if she misunderstands what's going on here or not. So Caroline Leavitt puts out, Trump push pays off. Pharma giants say Brits must pay same as Americans for new drug. Now I want to go back to this interview from, I think this was over the weekend with Fox News with President Trump talking about this.
It seems like that's the response from a lot of leaders. They know that the gig is up when it comes to the relationship.
Where they really know, though, is on favored nation drugs.
Yeah.
Because for years, we've been paying sometimes for a pill $100 and they're paying $10. And I say, what's this all about? And now the drug companies agree that I'm right. And the countries, if they don't agree, I'll use tariffs to get them to agree. You understand?
Yeah.
And we're going to be reducing drug costs over the next year and a half by not 50 or 60%, by 1,000%. Because if you think a $10 pill so it'll be raised up from 10 to 20 because it's the world versus us. So the world is a bigger place. So it'll go from 10 to 20. It won't go from 10 to 50 or 60 for them, which is bearable, and it'll go from 10 to 20 for us. So you're talking about a monumental change in healthcare. That's going to affect Medicare, Medicaid, even Social Security. It's going to affect everything. That will be one of the biggest things you'll ever see done.
because we've been paying for the healthcare of every nation in the world.
All right. So unfortunately, that's not what's being done in this case right here. And I got to jump over to, I got two reports up, and unfortunately, I got to use the Daily Wire for this first one. Trump push pays off. No, it doesn't. Pharma giant says Brits must pay same price as Americans for new drug. Let's read this. Bristol Myers Squibb is set to release a new schizophrenia treatment in the UK for the same price it's listed for in the United States, a decision that will certainly please those in the White House who have fought to get Americans the same prices offered overseas. The announcement follows a push from President Donald Trump for U.S. drug makers to lower prescription drugs for Americans to the greatest extent possible. Bristol's approach to the United Kingdom market aligns with the White House's strategy to secure lower drug prices in the United States. Adam Lenkowski, chief commercialization officer at Bristol, said that the drug company is prepared to pull its drug Cobenfy from the European nation's market if the relevant government authorities do not agree to the price listed in the United States at $1,850 per month. Quote, our intention is to work with NICE and NHS to make this medicine available, but we are prepared to make the difficult decision to walk away if they cannot better recognize the value our medicine brings to patients and society, Lenkowski said. Quote, we agree, the Trump administration, that other countries need to pay their fair share. It's not shocking to me that the Daily Wire is completely and probably deliberately misinterpreting what's being said here. It's not the Brits. It's not Bristol saying, hey, you're going to pay America, you're going to pay the same price that this is paying, that they're paying in the UK. It's the inverse of that. The US has the inflated drug prices. And now Bristol is saying, UK, you're going to pay the same price as the United States. That is a massive win for Big Pharma. That is absolutely in no way, shape, or form beneficial to any nation, whether it's us or the Brits. And for Daily Wire to come in here and say that that aligns with the push that President Trump has put out there is patently absurd.
Yeah, it's and there's a lot of this going on in the Trump administration, unfortunately, where ostensibly on the surface it does look like that Big Pharma and these other industries are winning, like they're getting major victories, and it's very concerning. Like, we have to be very clear-eyed when we look at this stuff. We can't just have the rose-colored glasses on and just think that everything is, trust the plan and everything is roses and peaches. It's now I firmly believe in the whole drafting theory that Burning Bright and Chris Paul were talking about the other night on The Narrative, where it's like you're drafting off of the momentum of the plan that was already in place, the New World Order plan. And we've already seen several examples of that occurring to our advantage. This is one, though, that is absolutely concerning. And really what needs to be investigated is the FDA, because the FDA is the one who is the gatekeeper for all this stuff. They're the ones who approve putting this stuff on the shelves and on the market, so to speak. And what's that process look like? How does that whole dynamic work? Because as we understand it, a lot of these FDA officials go on to get very cushy golden parachutes working for the big pharma, like the pharmaceutical companies whose products they're approving while they're working at the FDA. And that's not as simple as like working at the Pentagon and then going and working for one of the defense contractors, because the stuff you're approving could potentially be poison that has long-term unforeseen consequences that maybe the companies were aware of the whole time. They just wanted to make money. And so it's not as simple as just saying, oh, well, that was a big mistake, we'll correct, we'll sign legislation to prevent that from happening in the future and move on. No. This becomes at that point, if that's what's happening, it needs to be a criminal investigation, and people need to go to prison. People need to be held accountable. And if there's no accountability, there's no law and order. If there's no law and order, there's no society. Like, that's just basic common sense walking through the logic of it. And people who don't like to engage in that line of thought are just being completely intellectually dishonest.
Yeah, I want to make sure that I get this right and report on this right. So I'm pretty sure that Susie Wiles had affiliations with Big Pharma with her lobbying firm. So I just asked the machine here, if Susie Wiles lobbied for Big Pharma. And it says there's no credible evidence that Susie Wiles was a registered lobbyist for Big Pharma or major pharmaceutical companies. Public lobbying disclosures, investigative reports, and coverage of her career indicate that she lobbied for clients such as tobacco, mining, waste management, media companies, but direct lobbying for pharmaceutical clients is not listed. Her lobbying firm, Mercury Public Affairs, has had pharmaceutical and health sector clients, including Gilead Sciences and Kaiser Permanente, but there's no publicly available record indicating Wiles herself registered to lobby on behalf of those specific companies. So her company did. She just personally didn't do any of that lobbying. That's fascinating. But I mean, that is concerning. And I'm trying to think of a situation here where, you know, perhaps Bristol has to charge a higher price for the UK just temporarily, or maybe this was the first time ever that the United States was paying a lesser price, even though the Rand Institute found, you know, through their study that we pay like 2.78% higher, or times 2.78 times more than the rest of the free world. This can't make sense to me. And that Levitt went out there and just woefully misinterpreted this. There has to be more to this. And I hope somebody in the press pool asks her about this either today or tomorrow.
Yeah, and you know, she does do that from time to time, and maybe she's operating under orders from Trump. Maybe she's doing it for a specific reason. But I agree with you. Like these kind of moments, this is not acceptable. It's the impetus is not on the White House to save us. The impetus is on us to press the White House to do something, to do the right thing. That is where like our role in this whole process comes into play, because if we don't take responsibility for all of this and get ourselves out of the situation, then we deserve what happens to us next. Like that is just logic 101. So we either engage and try to figure this out, or we become the victims of whatever lies ahead and become history's next cautionary tale. And again, it's not really about what happens to other countries. Like, that's their problem. If other countries get overcharged for this stuff, or they get poison on their markets, that's their problem. Like, they need to figure that out. Our problem is investigating these companies to understand, what are they doing? Like, what are they knowingly doing? I mean, Robert Malone was testifying that Pfizer was submitting data where they were taking JPEGs, like images, and altering them in Photoshop and then submitting the images. Like, how is that not a criminal? Like, how is that not a criminal act if that's true? Like, 100%. It's like adjusting numbers in a graph, like that also I think is a criminal act. But going into Photoshop and like altering images, that's like the next level of malice.
Yep.
So
we talked about this yesterday, because, you know, this is something I brought up like 3 years ago when they put out the COVID study on the vaccine's efficacy and safety and redacted the document.
Yeah.
Like, tell me one situation where something that has a direct implication on our health, something that is going to be essentially mandated, de facto mandate across the entire country, and it's appropriate to redact the safety and efficacy data.
Yep.
From us. That's if that doesn't infuriate people, I don't know what does.
Well, it becomes a RICO conspiracy case.
Yep.
Because it's not just the pharma executives, it's the officials in the government who were helping them do it, because they were ultimately, the impetus falls on them. They're the cops in this situation, right? And basically the drug dealers are the like if we wanted to make this into an analogy, the drug dealers are the pharma people, and the cops are the FDA and all the other agencies that are supposed to be overseeing this stuff. And it's one thing for the drug dealers to go out there and try to sell the drugs, but when the cops are involved in that operation, that is an entirely different situation. And those cops should almost face worse penalties than the drug dealers themselves. So we have to make an example out of all these people, lawfully, of course. But again, I would go back to Nuremberg and say, what happened at Nuremberg? What were they doing at Nuremberg? Like, what were they doing to get to that level where you were having a tribunal? And is that what needs to happen? I don't know the answer. I'm not going to say that it should or shouldn't, but we have to absolutely have the conversation.
I'm trying to find that report. Let me see if I can find it in 2 seconds. Because once I find the article, I know exactly. Here it is. There it is. So this is the report that Newsweek put out. Let me find the. Oh, maybe it's not. I'll find it. I need to bookmark that and archive it and everything else as well. But all right, let's move on. We survived that segment.
Did we? That's amazing.
I think. Hey, YouTube, can you still hear us? Radio check. All right, let's jump into this story. So MSNBC over the weekend reported that Tom Homan was investigated for accepting $50,000 from undercover FBI agents. Trump's DOJ shut it down. Oh, this is absolutely rich right here. On September 20th, 2024, with hidden cameras recording the scene at a meeting spot in Texas, Homan accepted $50,000 in bills, according to an internal summary of the case and sources. FBI agents and Justice Department prosecutors took no further investigative steps in the final months of 2024 and expected to keep monitoring Homan to determine if he landed an official role and would make good on steering contracts in a future Trump administration. Jump down here a little bit. Several FBI and justice officials believed that they had a strong criminal case against Homan for conspiracy to commit bribery based on recording him accepting cash and his apparent promise to assist with contracts. Yeah, just real quick on that, I want to jump over here to Leslie McAdoo Gordon, who says these dipshit legal experts you quote, claiming Homan could have been charged with conspiracy even while out of office, are evidently unaware that law enforcement officers can't legally be a part of a conspiracy. So actually, no, that couldn't have been charged in this situation. But I digress. Let's get back into the article.
Yeah, well, you also have other. We'll get to that before finish the article, then we'll get to the other aspects of it. But yeah.
Homan could have been charged with a crime then, legal experts say, but this case was unusual. He was not a public official, and Trump was not president at the time that he accepted the money. Quote, if someone who is not yet a public official but expects to be takes bribes in exchange for agreeing to take official acts after they are appointed, they can't be charged with bribery, said Randall Eliason, the former chief of public corruption prosecutions in the U.S. Attorney's Office of D.C., but they can be charged with conspiracy to commit bribery. In a conspiracy charge, the crime is the agreement to commit a criminal act in the future. On November 11th, 2024, President Trump announced he would make Homan his border czar, a White House advisor role which, unlike the job of Director of Immigration and Customs Enforcement, did not require Senate confirmation or an extensive FBI background check. You know what else a border czar can't do that an ICE director can do, Gordon? Approve contracts. So Tom Homan didn't have that authority in the first place.
Yeah. Well, like let's unpack this a little bit. Unless there's more to go through.
One more part, and I think this is important right here because I think if we ever got that undercover footage, this is what it might point to. Homan then launched his consulting firm. This is talking in the past. Homeland Strategic Consulting. Its website boasted of its work with the Department of Homeland Security, Defense, Justice, and others. Quote, we have a proven track record of opening doors and bringing successful relationships to our clients, resulting in tens of millions of dollars of federal contracts to private companies. When Homan became Trump's top border official in 2025, his consulting work and financial ties to border security and immigration-related contractors spurred questions from Democrats in Congress about his potential conflicts of interest. Is it possible that, maybe a former border chief, somebody that knows the ins and outs of how all this stuff works and had a consulting company, a legitimate public business, maybe, he just was being paid? Because it says they gave him $50,000 in bills. Are they saying like bills as in cash? Or are they saying bills as in, here's your bill? Okay, I'm paying my bill.
Like invoices. Yeah.
I'm paying my bill.
Okay, so let's just start at the most Occam's razor point, which is this story is being presented accurately and what they say happened actually happened. Okay.
Wait. If you're going to start at the logical point, like 0.0, 0.1, whatever it is,
which is just accepting what they're like, you're just accepting the story that they're telling us. Let's just start there. And then we can start to unpack the potential lies. But I say, let's just start there.
Well, you have to start with Ken Delanian wrote this.
Okay. Well, but before we even, before we even I think that's the next layer. Before we even get to the next layer of who these people are who wrote this story, Entrapment is, I just asked ChatGPT to provide the definition. Entrapment is a legal concept in criminal law. It refers to a situation where law enforcement agents or their informants induce a person to commit a crime the person would not have otherwise committed. So entrapment occurs when the government plants the idea of committing a crime in someone's mind and then persuades, pressures, or manipulates them to carry it out. Meaning, if like agents, if feds walk up to someone and say, "Here's a briefcase full of $50,000, let's commit a crime together," that's entrapment. Like they can't just do that. You can't just go and offer somebody money and then be like, "Oh, you just took a bribe," like arrest him. That's entrapment. So technically in this process, if you want to accept the idea that this actually happened as they're telling us, which I think they're lying, of course, these retards, these dipshits, as that other person described, and that's what they are describing a process that itself is illegal. So the FBI or whoever it was running whoever the blue-haired land whales were who were running this little op, they're the criminals here. They're actually the ones committing the crime. So that's step one. Like that's number one. And then we can start talking about whoever this cuck, Deliani or whatever his name is. Like, yeah. So tell me about this guy. Who is he?
So, okay, I'm glad you asked. Let's go ahead and dive into Ken Delanian. And we'll start here with Truth Dig. LA Times reporter cleared stories with CIA before publication. Documents obtained by The Intercept show that Ken Delanian, a prominent national security reporter for the Los Angeles Times, quote, routinely submitted drafts and detailed summaries of his stories to CIA press handlers prior to publication, end quote. Quote, I'm working on a story about congressional oversight of drone strikes that can present a good opportunity for you guys, Delanian wrote in one email to a CIA press officer, explaining that what he intended to report would be, quote, reassuring to the public, end quote, about CIA drone strikes. In another, after a series of back and forth emails about a pending story on CIA operations in Yemen, he sent a full draft of an unpublished report along with the subject line, quote, does this look better, end quote. And another, he directly asked the Flack, quote, you wouldn't put out disinformation on this, would you? And Delanian's emails were included in hundreds of pages of documents that the CIA turned over in response to 2 FOIA requests seeking records on the agency's interactions with reporters. They include email exchanges with reporters for the Associated Press, Washington Post, New York Times, Wall Street Journals, and other outlets. So that's one thing. He's also one of the bigger promulgators of the Fusion GPS. That's why they call him Fusion Ken. He's one of the big promoters of that, never back down from that position, put out a bunch of fake news and false information.
He's part of the conspiracy. He's part of the conspiracy.
He is the epitome of Project Mockingbird.
Okay. Yeah. And so like there's been all this talk about censoring the media and censoring people who put out disinformation and all that stuff. And again, people are approaching this from the wrong perspective. It's not about like creating a ministry of truth or creating a set of standards that everyone has to comply with. It's about investigating criminals when they engage in criminal conspiracy. So if this guy accepted money or somehow engaged in some sort of an agreement with officials who are later found to be involved in a plot to overthrow the U.S. government, guess what? That guy's also part of the plot to overthrow the U.S. government, and he also should be charged with whatever the other people are charged with. So you don't have to go to like the disinformation ministry of truth thing. You just have to round up all the criminals who are part of the criminal conspiracy and prosecute them for their crimes. Like that's like very simple. Once you start doing that, the problem begins to take care of itself. And then, of course, it's fruit of the poisonous tree, and everything they've ever said or put out in their career is then called into question. And then their whole entire organization is found to be a fraud because their organization potentially was also involved in the conspiracy. So this stuff has a way of like the dominoes start falling, and I think it starts to clean itself up. But we got to push the first domino over. That's the problem.
When you talk about, last week, this was a big topic with everybody because it's been a big topic here on Badlands forever. But when you talk about the Smith-Mundt Act, the Modernization Act of 2012, this is someplace where that would be applicable. This is the CIA State Department using journalists to manipulate, to propagandize people, having, a relationship with them where you are like, I would never in a million years send an article off to the CIA with a headline, an email headline, does this look good? Like, I'd ask them, is there anything factually incorrect that you want to dispute here, perhaps? Or would you care to comment? Right? That's the famous one. Would you care to comment on this? But, what he was doing there was literally propaganda for the CIA. And it's not lost on me that this is coming out on Homan, and Delanian's the one reporting it, because, we've speculated a lot about, the frickin' Maryland dad and everything else. And a lot of the CIA's ties to what's going on with the immigration here. Colonel Towner has been on with me and Alpha several times talking about the narco trafficking that the CIA uses to, fund their black ops, so to speak. Same thing with the poppy in Afghanistan. How follow the poppy, I think, is something that Colonel Towner has said before on our shows. It's not lost on me that they're going after Homan for his aggressiveness on these deportations, given the drug trafficking network that is being dismantled right now by President Trump and Tom Homan, explicitly. And now Delanian's trying to put out this, hit piece. I mean, everything in that MSNBC piece is unnamed sources or anonymous sources, anonymous reporting based on documents we saw that refer to a video. Then just show the video. All right. Just show I'm not beyond the idea.
Show the video. Like, yeah.
I am not beyond the idea that there could be corruption in the Trump administration. And maybe Tom Homan did take $50,000 and say, in exchange for this $50,000, I will get you contracts like all the Catholic charity organizations that Biden got contracts for. I just wrote an article last month about an organization that went from like $2 million a year to like $200 million, and then over $1 billion in the course of 2 years under the Biden administration. You're telling me nobody's getting kickbacks from that? And you're worried about $50,000 from the border czar who doesn't even have the authority to approve contracts? Get the hell out of here with this shit, man.
Yeah. And like people in the chat are saying that they just can't believe Tom Homan would take a bribe. I completely agree with you. Like, I completely agree with you that like at face value, I don't accept the story. I think the story is bullshit. But again, all we have to do here, guys, is stick with first principles. This is why first principles are so important, because before you even get to the part about arguing about Tom Homan's character, which I think, once you get to that point, you've abandoned first principles and you've moved into like a subjective debate that's hard to win. Like, that's a murkier, because then they start pulling up, everything Tom Homan's ever done in his life, and what human being out there is perfect and all that stuff. Back up and just look at the presentation. The premise of what they're presenting is illegal. The operation that they're like accusing Tom Homan of is called entrapment. They have engaged in that. And I'm not even a law enforcement expert, and I understand that. So again, this town deserves a higher class of criminal. We deserve an FBI that actually knows what entrapment is. And apparently they don't. If this story is real, they don't even know. And so those are the things that we should be saying to this, not like getting into the weeds of like, is Tom Homan, is he a man of good character? I think he is. But that's the next layer. The first layer is, why is the FBI engaging in illegal entrapment operations?
Yeah, that's the question that was posed by Julie Kelly on this. She says that's not the news here, meaning the 50,000. The bombshell is that the Biden DOJ attempted to entrap a former Trump immigration official, 2024 campaign advisor, and incoming Trump 2.0 official right before the election. There was no crime by accepting the money, if that happened at all. But Chris Wray's FBI tried to invent one based on what prosecutors hoped they could continue after Homan took office. But please tell us more about a fired U.S. attorney who allegedly wouldn't, quote unquote, invent a case against Letitia James. And that was referring to a post about Lindsay, what's her name? Kellinger. I can't remember her last name, but anyways, being appointed. The bottom line here is that if there's this video and the FBI has closed this case, said there's no evidence of this, there's no clear evidence of wrongdoing, release that video. The case is closed. It's no longer in evidence. It's not being used in an indictment or charges. Release the video. Okay. And let's see how much egg Ken Delanian is going to have on his face. Yet again, this guy has no shame. Ken Delanian is one of the worst reporters that you'll ever see. Absolute disgrace. But he doesn't care because he keeps getting propped up by, the Mockingbird outlets, MSNBC, LA Times, and they keep singing his praises because he's got some CIA handlers that feed him, bullshit narratives every once in a while.
Yeah, people in the chat are asking us to explain first principles. That's a long discussion. I would encourage you to go listen to the narrative from Sunday night with Burning Bright and Chris Paul, and they talked about a lot. They spent much of the show talking about that. But effectively, it's just not being a moral relativist. Like, if we're going to sit here and say we don't trust the FBI because the FBI has a history of lying and doing this kind of crap, then we also shouldn't trust the FBI when they come out and they give us an explanation for what happened with Charlie Kirk. When the explanation at face value doesn't seem to make any sense. And I applaud Kash Patel for coming out the other day and saying we're still exploring every possibility. We aren't dead set on the Tyler Robinson story, which I think is great. Like, I think they should explore everything. But just because the thing makes you feel good and like on your insides doesn't mean you should accept it. First principles means first principles. It means you always stick to what is right, even when it's hard to do that. That's first principles.
Let me see. I just asked the machine, explain first principles in one paragraph. So maybe they can make it concise enough that we can just give an overview. First principles refers to the most basic foundational truths or assumptions that cannot be deduced from anything more fundamental, serving as the ultimate building blocks for reasoning or understanding a subject in both philosophy and science. Thinking from first principles means breaking down complex problems into their core components and reconstructing knowledge or solutions from these basic elements, rather than relying on analogy and conventional wisdom. This method, championed from Aristotle to modern thinkers, is used to foster deep understanding, innovation, and original problem solving by reasoning up from known certainties instead of simply modifying existing ideas.
Yes.
Pretty good. Pretty good. All right, let's keep moving here because I want to make sure I give you adequate time today. Just the news. Trump signs order designating Antifa as domestic terror organization. Finally, Trump formally signed the executive order that designates Antifa as a domestic terror organization. I also think it's interesting. We talked about this last week, that the Netherlands also has a proposition or a resolution to declare Antifa a terrorist organization, which, if that somehow is able to get through, which it's unlikely, but Geert Wilders put it out there, the cartoon character, then there's a possibility that Trump could designate them a foreign terrorist organization as well, or a multinational terrorist organization. But Antifa is considered a militant far-left nationwide movement responsible for widespread protest and morphed into riots. Trump wrote, quote, "All relevant executive departments and agencies shall utilize all applicable authorities to investigate, disrupt, and dismantle any and all illegal operations, especially those involving terrorist actions," which Gordon got into earlier, what the definition is, "conducted by Antifa or any person claiming to act on behalf of Antifa." Trump additionally said last week that he's talked with Attorney General Pam Bondi about bringing federal racketeer influence and corruption organization act charges, RICO, against some of the far left organizations and their donors. The donors being the key word there. We've always heard Antifa's it's not an organization, it's an ideology, blah, blah, blah. Let's just play this clip of Chuck Todd melting down.
Yeah. Kind of like Al Qaeda. Al Qaeda isn't an organization; it's an ideology, right? I mean, these people are so dumb.
They're really dumb. Check this out.
It's going to be this executive order where they're going to try to create a new classification for anybody on the left who opposes Trump as somehow a member of Antifa and a terrorist.
Yes.
Like, this is coming, and I don't think we are fully now. I don't think there's any the problem. Like, I don't even know what Antifa is. I know what the definition of Antifa is, and I know
what the word means, but it's not a group.
There is no group.
No.
And so, but what's dangerous is that by designating it, who's going to define who the group is? And if the Trump administration decides to say, you, George Soros, are a part of this group that I designated, and you're like, no, I'm not, and it doesn't matter. Like, they're going to then use that as some sort of potential opening. And I think that's what's so extraordinarily dangerous about these designations. Like what he did with, look, he's sort of testing the theory of this case with what he's doing with Venezuela, and sort of designating this sort of, well, they're narco terrorists, and somehow it allows, by the way, he's using the AUMF as their legal cover on this, which of course is just
20 odd years old,
so far removed from what the AMUF was meant to be.
The AUMF, Chuck Todd. But given what you were just saying about the Bush designation, the executive order, you want to chime in on that first?
Yeah, I mean these guys are a bunch of pencil neck knuckleheads.
But Gordon, they are to be taken very seriously. Do you see that typewriter over his shoulder? This is a bona fide journalist. He's even got an old school typewriter. All right.
Yeah. I mean, but they don't even know what Antifa is. I'm pretty sure these morons were pushing Antifa like on their networks, like the entire first Trump administration, if I remember, like bash the fash. Like we all saw it. Okay. And basically that pathetic explanation they gave. I mean, could you imagine if you applied that logic to organized crime, like syndicates, like mafias? It's like, well, George Soros says he's not involved in this stuff. So like, we got to take him at his word. It's like, could you imagine I just couldn't imagine earnestly engaging with someone who's that stupid and trying to have a productive conversation with them. I mean, it blows the mind, but obviously you can chart this stuff out. Like you can gather communications, you can gather attempts to organize, you can follow the money. It's not hard to piece together, with enough effort. Obviously it's hard work, but you can do these things if you're a law enforcement agency, and you can map out a network that is operating in the shadows, and prove in a court of law that they are actually an organization and they are actually working together.
I mean, this looks like an organization to me. They have a website, New York City Antifa. You can go to the About Us. I'm sure the About Us is going to be like, we're a loosely organized group. New York City Antifa has been dedicated to research on and action against fascist cultural and political organizing in New York City.
Yeah. And where it's going to get really inconvenient for guys like Chuck Todd is when the people like who are funding the stuff, George Soros is kind of the popular caricature, but there are a lot of other people who are involved in this stuff. When those people are also connected to Chuck Todd's network, to his platforms, when they're also giving money to Chuck Todd, and then people like Chuck Todd, I'm not saying Chuck Todd specifically, but people like him there's years and years and years of those people saying saying the buzzwords that Antifa puts out on their website, on their broadcasts, and they're receiving money from the same people who are giving money to Antifa. Well, it's going to be really hard for those people to argue that they're not part of the Antifa network as well. And that's how, RICO conspiracy works. So yeah, like maybe it's time to lawyer up, guys. Maybe it's time to shut your mouth and lawyer up. If you think maybe you're going to be connected to this stuff.
Here's another one right here. This is Philly Antifa. Their website is phillyantifa.org. What does the org stand for in a .org?
Yeah. And, are we going to learn that? I mean, and I think the answer is probably yes, but like government grant money, like how many of these groups were applying for grants, and who taught them how to apply for grants? Applying for grants is that's like a full-time job. Like I know people who do that for a living. Like their job is to work for organizations and basically fill out the mountains and mountains of paperwork that you have to fill out in order to get free money from the government. Was some of this money going to groups that were funneling it to Antifa? I think the answer is probably yes. So again, there's paperwork, there's a paper trail, there's a money trail. Like you can track all this stuff can be tracked, all of it.
Here's Atlanta Anti-Fascist, and I'm pretty sure aren't they the ones that ran the op against Cop City or whatever it was?
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And again another .org. Here's one that I've written about personally. Rose City Antifa. I mean, they're pretty well organized for an organization that's just collective ideas and not an organization.
It gets really inconvenient though with Antifa stands for anti-fascism, and the media has spent the past 9 years accusing Donald Trump of being a fascist. That is a very inconvenient fact that should be keeping these people up at night worrying about what's going to happen.
Hell yeah. And I could care less about the foot soldiers, so to speak. I mean, yeah, they're disruptors and all that. I care about
useful idiots. Useful
idiots. Exactly. They're nothing but pawns. If you want to play a chess game and you sit there and you just attack pawns the whole time, then you're going to lose that game. You want to go after the king, the queen, the rooks, the knights. You don't want to go after pawns the whole time. So I am hoping that we do get something on that, get to the root of this, the Soros, the Tides, those organizations that have been funding this for God knows how long. All right, let's jump into this story here from NBC. It's Groundhog Day yet again. Trump to meet with Democratic leaders as government shutdown looms. President Trump is expected to meet with Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer this week. Jeffries and Schumer requested that the meeting take place ahead of the September 30th funding deadline. Trump said over the weekend, quote, "I'd love to meet with them, but I don't think it's going to have any impact." The Senate voted last week to block dueling Republican and Democrat proposals to keep the government funded. The Democrats' funding bill would extend Obamacare subsidies set to expire at the end of the year. The Republican bill would fund the government at current spending through November 21st, but preserve cuts to previously appropriated spending that have incensed Democrats. I want to go back to the Obamacare studies one because they link to another article they have up here. And so let's jump over to this article from July. Republicans are split on extending Obamacare tax breaks as higher costs loom. The cause faces opposition from conservatives who detest Obamacare, as the law is nicknamed, and don't want to lift a finger to protect it. Some argue it'd be too expensive to continue the premium tax credits, which cost over $30 billion per year and were initially adopted as part of the COVID-19 response. The COVID-19 response. Wait. Who was quote unquote president in the COVID-19 response? That wasn't Obama.
That was Biden.
So why are we saying push back against the subsidies for Obamacare when this was COVID? Oh, because Obamacare was just kind of like a cesspool where you can just keep stacking and stacking and stacking on top of it because we just have the Federal Reserve that we just say, hey, we want to put another $20 billion over here. Can you print that? And they're like, yeah, sure, we'll print it for you. Here you go. There's no fiscal responsibility in this government.
It's almost like, because Obamacare, I think, was signed into law like 2010, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Or at least it was like, I think it was, like the legislation was initiated or it was first voted on in 2010. Maybe it was 2012 or when it was actually signed into law. But yeah, it's almost like Obamacare was laid as a groundwork in anticipation of this forthcoming pandemic situation where they were just going to use that to just turn the money printers on and just like take it to the next level. I mean, again, this could all be part of the RICO conspiracy.
Yeah. And it says here, the Nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office. I love how they throw nonpartisan in there because it's absolutely partisan. It's just not Democrat versus Republican. It's establishment versus populist. Projects that about 5 million Americans will lose their insurance by 2034. That's 9 years. If the government tells you, hey, look, get off our tit, you got 9 years. I mean, I don't know how much more warning you need, but let's jump back into the article here. The House and Senate are on recess this week, and Republican leaders have decided not to bring the House back until after the funding deadline. What the fuck is
Oh no, sorry guys, we're too busy in the Hamptons playing croquet to come be bothered with this,
We're too busy hanging out with Bill Ackman trying to get that Israel money.
Yeah.
In the Hamptons. You said Hamptons. That's why it popped into my head. If there is a shutdown, mandatory services such as Border Patrol, the Postal Service, and Social Security will continue, but many federal workers will go unpaid. Oh, man. So, again, here we are. Deja vu, Groundhog Day. The House is in recess. They're not going to call them back until after the funding deadline. How on earth are we ever going to get the government funded? But this is like the carrot they dangle in front of the faces of, people on Badlands that like are encouraging the shutdown. We know that it's going to happen at some point and it needs to. John, especially. I mean, he's like, that's like tempt him with a good time. Shutdown. Whoo.
Yeah.
Dangling the carrot. They're like, it's really going to happen this time. They put them on recess. They're not going to even be there to vote. And then they'll call in like a proxy vote or something at September 29th at 11:58 p.m. They'll all come together and they'll celebrate at 12:01. Look, guys, we did it. We came together. Unity. And we'll do the same thing in November. This is so fucking retarded. I cannot stand how awful our government is.
Yeah. Well, and like the main reason that I want this to happen, like that I want the shutdown to happen, don't tell me with a good time for sure. It's not just about like stopping them from passing more bad legislation. It's also about like stop spinning our wheels because we spend so much time talking about Congress and like speculating on the things that they're going to do and getting really, really excited about the new television characters who are added to the cast and like what's going to happen in the soap opera and, you know, like what's AOC doing this week and what's, you know, Anna Paulina Luna doing next week and, you know, all this crap. And what have they actually accomplished? And the answer is nothing. They've accomplished exactly zero. And yet we have dedicated thousands of man hours of our precious time to talking about these people when they have delivered absolutely zero. So imagine getting all that time back, and we could dedicate that to really anything. But if you wanted to dedicate it to like political analysis and politics, we could dedicate it to other things. We could be researching, you know, building out the web of this RICO case on our own. So we don't have to depend on the FBI or whoever else to go out and get these people. We can build the web out ourselves. And, you know, that empowers us to attain the knowledge for ourselves. So we just like Brad Zerbo did with the Codex 9/11 documentary. So again, I think we waste way too much time talking about Congress because I think most of those people are at the very least acting dishonestly. Many of them, I think, are actually criminals. And I would love to see them shut down so we don't have to listen to them speak anymore.
Yeah. It'd be so awesome if we got like an actual, like long-term, when I say long-term, I mean a couple months, and we see the government shut down. You know, essential services are kept up and running, post office, border patrol, you know, certain law enforcement agencies, etc. And we realize absolutely nothing in our lives changed. Absolutely nothing in our lives changed. They are literally not voting for a funding bill. They're voting to affirm their legitimacy. Like
they're voting to continue getting a paycheck. Like they're voting to continue the pay, like to continue collecting, you know, a multi six-figure salary from the government. Like that's what they're voting on, basically.
The only thing that they ever do that people are like, oh my goodness, we got to get this done right away, is the funding bills. And it's like, why? It just doesn't make sense to me. You know, Congress it's very specific what the federal government is supposed to do, outlined in the Constitution. And, you know, we've of course allowed it to get grossly inflated. And let me that'll actually segue, excuse me, Subway.
Last thing I want to say before you segue is just, I actually would disagree when you say that our lives are not changed at all. Like I would agree with you in what the spirit of what you're saying. Like our lives don't change because the federal government doesn't, you know, regulate our daily life. I think our lives would actually change dramatically because we would have all that free time I just mentioned, and we could dedicate that to, you know, fixing our local governments, fixing our state governments, you know, doing anything, developing a hobby, like doing anything but politics, whatever it is. But like, I think we would all find that we have so much more free time than we used to because we're not wasting our time talking about Congress.
And we'd have a lot more money because if they're not working, we ain't paying them. And so then we could turn around and say, hey, look, I just saved $20,000 a year in taxes. They say you work, what is it, till April 15th? You work for the government. And then after that, or is it's longer than that, isn't it? No, is it? I think it's April. It's tax day. April 15th is, you know, kind of the de facto, you work for the government for the first 4 months of the year. And then after that, you get to keep what you make. We could turn around and say, well, you know, I'm 20,000 to the federal government. That's gone now. So yeah, I'll give 5,000 to my state government. And you guys can actually get shit done. I don't know. But that'll segue into this story here from SCOTUS blog. Supreme Court allows Trump to fire FTC commissioner. It says the Supreme Court cleared way for Trump to fire Rebecca Slaughter, the FTC commissioner, and agreed to decide on the president's ability to fire the heads of independent agencies. That's big. Agreed to decide on the president's ability to fire the heads of independent agencies. The case could dramatically upend Supreme Court precedent and give the executive branch much greater authority over federal agencies. What are they? What is the executive branch the executor over? Federal agencies. Anyways, Justice Kagan dissented, joined by the Sotomayor and Ketanji Brown Jackson. Kagan wrote that the majority had allowed Trump to remove, contrary to federal law, quote, any member that he wishes for any reason or no reason at all, and he may thereby extinguish the agency's bipartisanship and independence. Again, me and Ash talk about this ad nauseum, especially since we had Neil Gorsuch overruled on Badlands Book Club last book. And There is no such thing as an independent federal agency. It is a made-up term. You cannot have an independent federal agency. You cannot have that. Somebody has to have oversight over them. The Trump administration went to the Supreme Court over a dissent by the court's 3 Democratic appointees. The court granted that request on May 22nd, allowing Trump to remove the 2 women. The majority's brief, unsigned order in Wilcox and Harris's case. This is the the Merit Relations Board, the National Merit Services Board, and what was the other one? The Labor Relations Board, Merit Service Board. There you go. Anyways, did not address the significance of the Supreme Court's 1935 decision in Humphreys Executor versus United States, holding that although a president can normally fire subordinates for any reason, Congress can create independent, multi-member regulatory agencies, in that case, the FTC, whose commissioners can only be removed, quote unquote, for cause. The decision to pause the lower court's orders, the majority wrote, quote, reflects our judgment that the government is likely to show that both the NLRB and the MSPB exercise considerable executive power. So this basically, to summarize what the Supreme Court did here, is they said, we're going to address Humphreys Executor, all right, the executive branch authority over independent agencies. But this case isn't that case, because the NLRB and the MSPB and the FTC commissioner are exercising a lot of executive authority, and therefore the president should have direct oversight over that, because he is the executive. He is the chief executive officer of the United States. Their argument is going to be, other agencies. I would assume you're looking at agencies like the EAC, for example, elections being my thing. That's supposed to be an independent agency. There's no such thing, man. And Congress cannot, in my opinion, Congress can't legislate an organization and say, hey, we're going to create a de facto 4th branch of government. And, that branch is going to sprawl into a bunch of other ones known as the bureaucracy. And we're going to give them complete and total immunity from any actions from the president, unless they really do a bad thing. This was a 1935 decision. If you look at the context of what was going on in this country in 1935 with FDR, the Big New Deal, all the shit that he put out, I've got to think that we're going to get back to some common sense here with justices like Clarence Thomas and Neil Gorsuch and Alito on the bench. So that's my spiel.
Nice. Yep, I agree with you.
And then before I hand it over to you, just one more quick story. Jimmy Kimmel's back, guys. Everybody be excited. Yay. Jimmy Kimmel is returning to ABC. He says, quote, last Wednesday, we made the decision to suspend production on the show to avoid further inflaming a tense situation and an emotional moment for our country. It's a decision we made because we felt some of the comments were ill-timed and thus insensitive. We have spent the last days having thoughtful conversations with Jimmy. And after those conversations, we reached the decision to return the show on Tuesday. But Sinclair is not having it. They said beginning Tuesday night, Sinclair will be preempting Jimmy Kimmel Live across our ABC affiliate stations and replacing it with news program. Discussions with ABC are ongoing as we evaluate the show's potential return. So there you go. He's back, which is excellent, because all the people were out there saying that it was Trump that forced ABC to do this. And that just completely shot back in their face when ABC's like, no, that was our decision. We took some time out. We talked to him and we're going to bring him back. Wait, has Trump been calling to bring him back? No, I didn't think so. All right. On that note, I think that's all I've got. Yeah. Well, okay, hold on. One last thing. And this is kind of foreign. Ryan Routh, his defense began yesterday and ended yesterday. He only called 3 witnesses. Yeah, dude, the fact that this case is not getting any public attention, I am so disappointed in myself for not driving an hour north every day and covering this trial. But so he defended himself. He said he called a firearm expert, Michael McClay. His answers, however, went the way Ruth was hoping that they would go. 2 associates from his native Greensboro also took the stand and gave answers that sought to show Ruth's gentler side, one less combative than a would-be assassin, as the prosecution has presented. And And then it says down here that he participated in the Super Tuesday primaries in 2024 in North Carolina and in Hawaii. So if they don't get him on assassination attempts, they'll get him on election fraud. On that note, the floor is yours, sir.
Man, there's like so much to cover. So I would encourage everyone to join me at 2:00 when I'm going to go through a lot of this stuff more in depth. And I'm trying to like prioritize where the big stories are. Let's start with like the furthest back news and kind of work our way up. So last week, you may have seen this story. If you want to share my screen, Netanyahu says Trump to host him on September 29th, issues dire warning to Hamas over hostages. Now, obviously, with all the Charlie Kirk coverage, a lot of these stories get lost in the fray. So maybe people didn't see it. But, people were upset because they were like, why is Trump inviting Netanyahu to the White House? Like Netanyahu is like basically on an island right now, geopolitically, with the UN General Assembly in session right now. And my understanding, I see people in the chat saying Trump just addressed the UN. So I obviously haven't had a chance to watch the speech, but I will when this is over, and we'll probably talk about it on my show. But this is actually a lie. This report, like this deployment, did not come from the White House. It didn't come from Trump. It came from Netanyahu. And the truth is this: Netanyahu is scheduled to give an address to the UN this Friday, September 26th. And basically he just came out and said, well, yeah, I'm going to the White House as well. Now, maybe the White House did invite him, but what's interesting is this: he's going, as he says right here, on the 29th, which is next Monday. So he's going a full 3 days after he's addressing the UN. In my opinion, like just the decorum of like politics and like optics and everything, if you were actually giving somebody their support, like your support, lending him your support, Trump would have him to the White House before he addresses the UN to kind of build up the moment and give him that positive PR and give him the momentum going into his speech. Trump is having him to the White House 3 days after he speaks. Like whatever he says at the UN is going to be on ice by then. And what's even more interesting is this. So like, who knows if the White House actually invited him or if he just invited himself, but he's already going to be in New York City. That's where the UN General Assembly is. He's already going to be, a few hours from DC. So that's why he's going to the White House. It's not because he's not making a special trip because Trump invited him to come make a special trip. What's even more interesting though is the day before Netanyahu addresses the UN on Thursday, Trump is, and he is the one who announced this, he's hosting Netanyahu's arch nemesis, President Erdogan of Turkey. And Erdogan and Netanyahu have been trading barbs for the past couple of years. A number of Netanyahu's officials in his administration have basically threatened to assassinate Erdogan. Multiple people have said, you saw what happened to Saddam, you might be next, be careful. Those kind of veiled threats. Erdogan has made veiled threats about sending the special forces into the Tel Aviv to get some of them. So there's no love lost between these people. What's interesting about this is that the speculation is, and this is something I've been tracking for a while, is that you'll recall the $142 billion military deal that we did with Saudi Arabia in May, and how that basically got put on hold because of the qualitative military edge that Israel enjoys and has enjoyed for the past 20 years, where basically if we give anything to Israel militarily, we have to give better tech, or anything to one of the Arab countries in the Middle East militarily, we have to give Israel better technology, or we have to send a battalion of troops there to reinforce the security architecture of Israel. That's written into law. I think it was passed in 2008, 2007, maybe. And so for years now, a number of countries have been trying to get the F-35, because that's not because the F-35 is considered the best plane in the sky. I think some people would argue it's not, but because that's what the IDF uses, is the F-35. And so that was part of what MBS, like part of the $142 billion deal, was the F-35. It's something that MBS has said he wants for the Saudi military. A number of Republicans in Congress have said that's never going to happen because of the QME. It's highly speculated that on Thursday, Trump's going to announce that we're selling the F-35 to Turkey. And what makes that interesting is that Turkey, unlike every other country in the Middle East, they're not an Arab country, first of all. And second of all, they are one of the most important members of NATO, because they control Russia's access to the Mediterranean Sea through Istanbul. And so giving them strong military equipment is in the interest of the establishment that wants to fight Putin, because they are a key member, a cornerstone, I would say, of NATO. And so I think that's where Trump's going to go, is he's going to lean into the NATO thing. He's going to say, we need Erdogan flying F-35s over the Black Sea to remind Putin of our dominance, of NATO's dominance, right? And who could argue with that if you're a neocon? However, what's really going to end up happening is that Erdogan is going to be flying F-35s over Syrian airspace, which is where the IDF currently is trying to stake their claim and dominate that battlefield, and basically say southern Syria belongs to us. So this is going to be a really interesting one. The fact that he's bringing Erdogan in a day before Netanyahu addresses the UN. Remember what happened last year when Netanyahu came to address Congress. The night before, Trump posted the letter he got from Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas with a handwritten note that said, "Don't worry, Mahmoud, everything is going to be okay." This is the same thing all over again. This is him playing mind games with Netanyahu and throwing him off his, shaking his confidence before he goes to address the UN. Who knows what he's going to say when he addresses the UN? Now, going to the UN.
Hold on one second. Hold on. Before you segue, real quick, we got to do a quick sponsor, and then I've got something else that I want to discuss as well, just briefly. It's just a headline, but it's a big headline. All right, guys, let's jump into this right here. Where is the button for this? Sorry, I should have had this ready to go as I interrupt you. We got to talk about our friends over at Native Path. Are you ready to move easily and independently without pain or stiffness holding you back? Do you want to look in the mirror and see a plump, hydrated glow instead of more fine lines and wrinkles? Discover Native Path Collagen, made with only type 1 and 3 collagen fibers, the two most important types that make up 90% of the collagen in your body, found in your cartilage, bones, skin, hair, nails, and gut. Types 1 and 3 provide maximum benefits without the need for unnecessary fillers. Native Path Collagen is a single ingredient formula with no fillers, additives, or artificial sweeteners, and it is third-party tested for heavy metals, ensuring purity and safety. It's completely flavorless. Native Path Collagen can be added to anything: coffee, smoothies, oatmeals, you name it. Its peptide formula makes it more bioavailable, meaning it's absorbed more easily and mixes perfectly without clumping. And the best part, Native Path offers amazing bundle deals. You can get 3 or 6 packs at a fraction of the price of other brands. Join their private Facebook community to share success stories, recipes, and even support each other on this journey that we call life. Visit getnativepath.com and start your transformation today. Again, that's getnativepath.com. All right, let me go ahead and take that down. All right, guys, and why is it doing that? And then one last sponsor here. If you're done letting big tech decide what you see, you need to check out Pickaxe. This is the anti-algorithm, anti-censorship platform built for creators. No algorithmically manipulated feeds, no data harvesting, and zero tolerance for digital gatekeeping. Real voices are already building there. The Vigilant Fox, Children's Health Defense Network, Naomi Wolf, Ann Vandersteel, Shannon Joy, Sergeant Report, Red Pill 78. They're all on Pickaxe. And you can write articles that auto-publish your Rumble videos, which are playable in the newsfeed. And soon you'll be able to blast out full email newsletters to your followers. Monetize how you'd like. Paywalls, affiliate links, revenue sharing. It's all built in. Free verification with a blue check, referral perks, and total control. If you're serious about declaring your independence from big tech and experience true freedom of speech and freedom of reach, this is the platform. Check out pickaxe.com and set up your account today. And on that note, just real quick, Gordon, huge announcement and hat tip to who was it in the chat that pointed this out? I apologize. I should have had this ready to go because this could be a game changer right here. Man, there it is. Spotzel. This was from Spotzel. Check this out. Jim Jordan puts out there, due to our oversight efforts, Google commits to offer all creators previously kicked off of YouTube due to political speech violations to return to the platform. And then it's a thread.
Interesting.
Massive.
I saw he said, but that's not all. So I'm interested what else, what the other fine print is. Well, I mean, we don't have to run through it all, but I'd be interested once that gets unpacked, like to hear the full analysis. So Good. This is you know, the only way to eat an elephant is one bite at a time. So this is, you know, another big bite that we're taking. So anyway, yeah, so let's get back to this. So this is from September 18th. So late last week, I think it was Friday, if I'm not mistaken, Thursday. So the Security Council of the UN is 15 countries. 5 of them are permanent Security Council members. Those are the 5 countries that won World War II. That would be the US, Britain, France, Russia, and China. Because remember, China was our ally in World War II. And then the other 10 are like a rotation of countries that get elected to be on the Security Council. And so the 5 countries that are permanent members have a veto. So anything that they vote on, any one of the countries can exercise that veto and basically throw out whatever is being considered. And the U.S. does that on behalf of Israel regularly. And so last week, a resolution was brought to demand to force a permanent ceasefire in Gaza. All 14 members voted yes, except for the U.S., who voted to veto it. The woman, our representative, was Morgan Ortegas. I don't remember if we talked about her last week or not, but she's basically a clone of Tammy Bruce, a younger version of Tammy Bruce. And she basically got up and read the exact statement that Tammy Bruce got up and made in July, decrying the Saudis and mocking them for supporting Hamas, which they don't support Hamas, but that's what she was saying. And the other, I think 2 days before this, the UN voted 142 of the 193 countries voted yes, 10 voted no, including the US and Israel, to support the New York Declaration, where they said Hamas needs to surrender to the Palestinian Authority, turn over all of its weapons, release all the hostages, and leave Gaza forever. And Morgan Ortegas stood up and said, no, that's totally unacceptable. The only acceptable outcome is for Hamas to surrender, turn over all of its weapons, release all the hostages, and leave Gaza forever. And I think like all of the other people were looking at each other like, is this woman like touched in the head? So then 2 days later, this resolution is brought to the Security Council, which is obviously a much smaller group, 15 countries. And then she vetoes it, stands up, makes pretty much the same boneheaded statement, just makes America look like a bunch of jackasses on the American or on the world stage. And then that leads to yesterday. And so yesterday, all of these countries come out and formally recognize the Palestinian state. Now, prior to this happening, a number of leaders stood up and gave addresses, including President Erdogan from Turkey, the president from Indonesia, Sisi from Egypt. In every single case of those 3, and there were a few others, these are like Muslim countries who already recognize Palestine, obviously. When it got to the part about them talking about Palestine, all of them, their mics cut out, and they were just speaking and nobody could hear them. In every single case that happened. Then a number of other countries stood up, like Portugal, Monaco. They stood up and they formally recognized Palestine. And they said, we are formally recognizing Palestine here, which is a significant moment because remember, like here's France doing it. And I just want to show this one video because you'll notice, bring the volume down. You'll notice, look who stands up when Macron makes that statement, says France is now formally recognizing the state of Palestine as a real nation. Those are the Saudis. So the Saudis, now this particular meeting that's happening within the General Assembly is the special meeting that's hosted. You can see in the background, I don't know if it's in this video, but you can see in the background that like Faisal bin Farhan is in the background. Macron is sitting next to him. Macron got up and gave a speech. And I think there was the third, I forget who the third person was, maybe the Secretary General of the Arab League. But so the Saudis do a standing ovation. There is Tamim in front of him, that's from Qatar, sitting right in front of Saudi. And so the Saudis are doing this because they were working with France. They're the ones who convinced Macron and France to do this, which is a big deal because France and Britain are the ones who created the Middle East in 1919. They're the ones who drew the lines on the map and created the modern Middle East, including Palestine. and they've always backed Israel, obviously. So that's a big deal. I wanted to show this video. Well, wait, before I go there, let me go here. Here's an 18-second clip of Mahmoud Abbas, the president of Palestine. Remember, this guy was not allowed. None of his delegates were all their visas were denied by the State Department. They were not allowed to come to the UN. They've always come to the UN General Assembly. Even though they're not formally recognized as a country, they've always been allowed to attend the General Assembly. For the first time ever, their visas were denied and they were not allowed to come by the Trump State Department. Very important to recognize that. So instead, they submitted a video, and I guess the Saudis, the Qataris brought it, and they played the video for everybody. And here's like it's translated, but here's what he says, 18-second clip.
Hamas will have no role in governing. Hamas and must surrender their weapons to the Palestinian Authority. What we want is one unified state without weapons.
So there you go. There's the leader of Palestine, who's been the leader of Palestine for the past 30 years, who's been at war with Hamas since 2006. Remember, Hamas went to war with him before they went to war with the IDF. And they tried to kill his prime minister in 2018. Remember that. And there he is saying, not only are we going to not allow them to be involved in the government and surrender all their weapons, we want one unified state, meaning the Gaza and the West Bank, where there are no weapons. So we want a unarmed state, which is exactly what Netanyahu has been demanding. It's exactly what all the Zionists have been demanding. My guess is that's not going to be good enough, because it never is. But that's the point, that's where we are right now. And then you have Faisal bin Farhan. He's speaking in Arabic here, so like we can't listen to what he says, but he says Palestine is an Arab state suffering under Zionist occupation. The two-state solution conference represents a historic opportunity to achieve peace. This guy, I think, is one of the most important diplomats in the world. For those who aren't familiar with who he is, here's another clip of him speaking. It's a minute and a half. This is from July 2024 at the Munich Security Conference. He was born and raised in Germany, so he speaks perfect English, but listen to what he says here.
On the issue of the Palestinian state, I would ask the gentleman that posed the question, the beginning question should be, do the Palestinian people deserve a state? It's not about the Palestinian leadership. This is an issue of self-determination for the people of Palestine. So if we all agree that the people of Palestine deserve self-determination, and we understand that it is their desire to have a state of their own, then they deserve a state and they deserve to be recognized. How they are governed is up to the Palestinian people, and how we deal with them then is a reflection of whether or not that government is responsible and is able to live up to its responsibilities to its neighbors. And in that regard, I would point out that the Palestinian Authority, with all of the challenges that have been put in its place, with all of the difficulties that it has to deal with, and stipulating that it is an imperfect authority, has lived up to its responsibility to Israel, its main responsibility to Israel, which is providing security. And even with the difficult situation that we face now, the West Bank has not been a source of threat to Israel's security. Nonetheless, Israel continues to actively undermine every day that same authority that has lived up to all of its commitments under Oslo. At the same time, when we see what happened in Gaza, it has been well reported, including in Israeli media, that it was a policy of the Israeli government to continue to empower Hamas's control over Gaza as a way of undermining the prospects for a two-state solution. This is...
Yeah. And the last thing on just that one note that I wanted to share is this, which this is just the headline from yesterday. And for those who can't see it, this is from yesterday. This is from the Times of Israel, and it says, Palestinian state will never exist, according to Hamas's, the founder of Hamas. This is his son, Mossad Hassan Youssef. So he is, for those who don't know, he is an Israeli spy. He works for the Shin Bet, and kind of tells you everything you need to know about Hamas, like why Hamas was created in the first place. This is the son of the founder of Hamas, the guy who created Hamas in 1988. And he is sitting there addressing, in the background, it says the mission of Israel to the UN. He's addressing like the Israeli group, and he's saying there will never be a Palestinian state. There will never be a Palestinian state in Gaza or in the West Bank. And this is the reason that Hamas was created, to undermine the authority of the peace-seeking government in Palestine, replace it with a militant government, and then basically justify a war with that government that would result in the annexation of both Gaza and the West Bank. And that's, of course, what's unfolding right now very quickly in a really jarring manner. So where I want to go next is I want to talk about this real quick. Trump unveiling a $4 billion locomotive deal with Kazakhstan, which sounds like a really random thing to be talking about. But actually, on my show in June, I spent like an hour talking about Kazakhstan and speculating what was going on with Kazakhstan and why it was so interesting. And the reason is because, like, on the show, let me see if I can open this in a different tab. Here we go. So for those who can see, what I did is I looked at Zbigniew Brzezinski's 1998 book, The Grand Chessboard, which is about the Middle East and the future of the Middle East. And basically what Zbigniew Brzezinski, this is the father of Mika, said is he said, the only thing that could stand in the way of the New World Order, the coming New World Order, this is 1998, remember, before George Bush W came into office. He said the only thing that could stand in the way would be an unlikely alliance between Russia, China, and Iran. And so what I did is I took on Google Earth, or Google Maps, I took a like the draw tool, and I drew a triangle between the capitals of Russia, Iran, and China, and look at what is in the dead center. Kazakhstan. And Kazakhstan, for those who don't know, I mean, you can kind of tell from the topography it's there. It's basically a flat plain. It's the start of what's called the steppe, which is all the horses in the world basically came from this region of Kazakhstan and Russia, and that, the Mongolian horde came riding down. There's a break in the mountains here in the eastern part of Kazakhstan. The Mongolian horde, whatever, 800, 900 years ago, came riding down the steppe on their horses and just rode right across Asia into Europe all the way to Hungary. And it's because it's just one continuous flat plain going all the way across. Very ideal conditions for building infrastructure and for building, pipelines, railway. That's what I'm speculating is I think Kazakhstan might be a really important, a key place. In 2022, there was a military coup that overthrew the government of Kazakhstan. And my understanding from people I've spoken to, like Nick No believes this as well, that was Putin doing that. Putin took over Kazakhstan and basically has it under his thumb in a very benevolent way. And if you look at like Astana, which is the capital right here, very, very like ornate, lots of money. There's tons of money in Astana. Trump also announced yesterday a deal with Uzbekistan. They're going to buy a bunch of like Boeing planes or something like the
22,000 of them.
Yeah, which is insane. That's crazy. But so Astana is interesting, and I'll go more into this on my show later. But basically, the TLDR is that January 2017, the month that Trump came into office, Putin started what was known as the Astana process. Now, the Astana process was the attempt to operate outside of the UN, like outside of the Western hegemony, and try to figure out a solution in Syria with Assad. And basically, the key players were Turkey, Iran, and Russia. Those are the three key players in the Astana process. And they had multiple meetings in October and November of last year leading up to Trump being elected. Those are when the most important meetings happened. And they basically from the sounds of it, they devised a plan, and they had more meetings after Trump was elected. And they basically announced in November of last year that they were like, we have a plan now what we're going to do with Assad. We have a plan now what we're going to do with Syria. And then on December 7th, that was when Assad was overthrown, and he was exfilled out of Syria on a helicopter and taken to Moscow, where he's living right now. And all of that was done in Astana. That was like the neutral ground where they were doing. And again, the whole process began the month Trump came into office, his first term, and then it wrapped up like 3 days before Assad was quote unquote overthrown. And the whole point of it was to come up with a solution that was outside of the control of like the Western hegemony. So very interesting. We'll see what happens there. We'll get into more of that on my show later. And there's also this story that's connected. This is from last week, September 17th. I wrote about this in the Badlands news brief. Putin signs off on Europe's largest ever high-speed rail project. So one of the things I go into in this video, there's a video, if you go look at the Badlands news brief, there's a 13-minute video that like a clip from that episode of Ghost Geopolitics with Ghost from June, and at the end of the video, I look at this article from last November, November 1st, where the article from this French publication is speculating, like warning really, that Putin is putting together this vast grand railroad master plan around the Caspian Sea. And basically this thing could represent like the death knell of the Western hegemony's control over international trade if this thing actually gets built. And it has been built. They've been working on it since 2019. Iran, President Rouhani was the one who cut the ribbon on it in Iran. But basically, this thing runs all the way up through Azerbaijan, through Russia. I think it's probably going to wrap around and connect to Kazakhstan, to Turkmenistan. It's a key segment of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization's North-South Transportation Corridor. And then you couple that story's from last November with this story from last week, Putin signing off on Europe's largest ever high-speed rail project. The new transportation network will span 4,500 kilometers and use domestically produced trains capable of reaching speeds of 400 kilometers. That's like 220 miles an hour, something like that. I'm sorry, 250 miles an hour. 2,800 miles of railroad, of high-speed railroad all over Russia. And then less than a week after Putin announces this, Trump announces that we're going to do the Kazakhstan, like the U.S. is going to build a railroad in Kazakhstan. I'm speculating. I'm wondering, are we going to see a railroad that connects Russia to Alaska, Alaska to Canada, Canada to the U.S., all the way to Kazakhstan, wraps around the Caspian Sea, connects to Iran, goes over to Turkey, which then takes you into Europe, but also goes down through like Syria, Saudi Arabia, takes you to Africa. We could see a railroad system that literally connects Washington, D.C. with Africa, where you could sit on a train and go all the way from Washington or New York to Africa by going through Asia. And if it's a high-speed train, I mean, 250 miles an hour probably is only the beginning. I mean, I bet you they're going to get these things going way faster than that. So I think all this stuff is connected. It's fascinating. I don't know if you want me to do the Venezuela thing real quick. That's a pretty cool story.
Can we land it there? And
yeah.
I apologize, but I got a lot of work to do now that my workload just got increased significantly. But are you going to do the Venezuela on your 2 o'clock show?
I would encourage everyone, if you're interested, if you haven't seen the narrative from last week, not the one this past Sunday with Chris, but the one from last week that I went on, I think it's like the last hour maybe. So if you don't want to watch the whole 3-hour show or 3.5 hour show, I think it's the last hour is when we really get into it, last hour and a half. But I don't get into the weeds on it. I just kind of run through the high level. But the TLDR is that Maduro and Trump like very clearly seem to be working together to go after these really corrupt executives that control all the oil and gold and diamonds and resources around the world. And I probably am going to do a Book of Trump episode on it where I will go into the weeds because I have all the lawsuits now and I can actually look at who the people are and they all line up with the people who've been arrested and put in prison and whatever. So it's very, very interesting, but probably won't go through that today on my show. I'm probably going to focus on Kazakhstan and the UN. But yeah, 2 o'clock, Geopolitics with Ghost.
All right. Well, obviously, thank you. As always, your geopolitical segments are always fascinating and just stuff that I don't even see reported in any news over here. I do definitely. I saw Pi Squared in the YouTube chat said that we need to go check out Trump's speech. So that's something I'll be doing almost right away. I'm going to write up a story on the Jim Jordan thing here first because it's fascinating. I was reading it and it specifically says accounts that were kicked off for election and COVID-19 information that no longer violates our policies, and their policies now are pretty open. Like you can actually talk about this stuff now. So it'll be interesting to see if we get our YouTube accounts back. And I mean, that would be absolutely massive. So there we go. Simply Rose in the chat says 2 p.m. Eastern. She asked the Eastern or Pacific, or yeah, she. All right, Gordon, thank you so much for joining us, guys. Be sure to smash that thumbs up if you have not done so. Tune into Daily Herald at 1 p.m., followed by Geopolitics with Ghost at 2 p.m. Ash and I will be covering The Fourth Turning on Badlands Book Club at 6 p.m. And then there's just a whole bunch of Badlands content. So stick around here, smash that thumbs up, turn on the notifications, and we'll see you guys next time. Thanks again, Gordon. And good luck with the
yeah, right. I know.
All right, take care, guys.
Deodorant should do more than cover you up. It should protect you all day long.
Dude, the deodorant stick is legit. I like the mint one. And, you go work out and you kind of get like, you get funky if you work out. Dude, like at the end of my workout, like I'm sweating, shirt got all those sweat. Like I'm like, dude, I still smell good. Like I absolutely love it. If you guys haven't tried it, try it.
That's the difference with Soft Disclosure. No aluminum, no chemicals, just clean, natural ingredients that fight odor and keep you fresh through every workout, every meeting, every moment.
I've always struggled with the you can't use aluminum deodorant because you're going to die if you use it kind of thing, because all of the non-aluminum deodorant products suck pretty much. Yeah. This is different. This is all day. You're all day good, and you're not putting any of that disgusting chemicals right near your lymph nodes.
Soft Disclosure deodorant, real protection, real freshness, built on truth. Available in mint and lemon grapefruit. Visit softdisclosure.com and use promo code Badlands for 15% off.